The ground falls away beneath our feet, and suddenly we stand in a world that does not feel like Earth. The air itself seems to shimmer with heat. Salt crystals glare under a sun that never yields. This is the Danakil Depression, a vast wound in the crust where Africa is being torn apart, a valley 100 meters below sea level where three tectonic plates meet, and the planet reveals what lies beneath its skin. It is a place so extreme that it reshapes the idea of life and landscape. Here, the horizon writhes in mirages, the rock glows in unnatural colors, and heat wraps around you like a physical thing. The land is torn open by forces millions of years old. Along the Afar triangle, the Nubian, Somali, and Arabian plates pull away from one another, stretching the crust until it thins and sinks. Rifting began 11 million years ago, and it continues today as the ground slowly drops and fractures. Standing here is like standing in the middle of a slow-motion explosion where the Earth is mid-birth. From some high points, you can see the valley's dimensions, 200 kilometers long, 50 kilometers wide, flanked by cliffs of basalt and limestone, and ringed by volcanoes that leak steam and lava. The Red Sea is not far away, and in a few million years it will flood this basin completely. For now, the depression remains a hot, dry landscape of extremes. Everywhere you look, there is salt. Ancient seas evaporated here, leaving layers of white crust that break like glass underfoot. Salt pans stretch to the horizon, shimmering like false water. In the morning, the salt is hard and dry. By midday, it melts slightly, sticking to your boots. By evening, it glitters again as crystals reform. In some places, the salt is soft and pocked with holes, as though you are walking on a frozen lake in summer. Miners from the Afar people carve rectangular blocks from the flats with axes, binding them to camels and trekking them north to market. This work has continued for centuries, the sight of a camel caravan moving slowly across the blinding white of the salt plain, dust kicking up in little clouds, bells jangling, is surreal. Humans and animals silhouetted against a landscape that looks like the surface of another planet. The salt they carry is heavy and luminous. It shimmers in the heat. The men wrap their heads in cloth soaked in water, but the water evaporates almost instantly. By midday, temperatures surpass 40 degrees Celsius and sometimes 50 degrees. On average, the air here remains over 35 degrees even through the night. Rain is rare, 1 or 2 brief showers a year, and the water evaporates before it touches the ground. To the north, the flatness breaks. The ground turns yellow and green and red, rising into terraces and domes that look like the ruins of some alien city. This is Dallol, a volcano unlike any other. It is not a mountain, but a salt dome, a place where magma pushes upwards beneath thick layers of evaporate. The pressure forces briny water and acid to the surface through cracks, creating hot springs and fumaroles. The water here is boiling at more than 90 degrees Celsius, yet it does not evaporate entirely because it is so saturated with dissolved salts that it becomes heavy, syrupy. The pH approaches 0, acidic enough to burn skin, and the air smells of sulfur and chlorine. You see pools of emerald green, rings of neon yellow, pillars of rust red. The colors are produced by salts of iron, copper, zinc and sulfur precipitating as the water cools. Steam rises from vents and collects in the still, hot air. Crystals grow and dissolve in an endless cycle, building delicate bridges and terraces only to watch them collapse as new hot water bursts through. When the sun hits the minerals at a certain angle, the whole landscape seems to glow from within. You feel as if you are on the surface of Jupiter's moon, Io, trapped between volcanic heat and chemical ice. Scientists come here to study extremophiles, microorganisms that thrive in conditions once thought uninhabitable. In these pools, water is nearly at boiling, saturated with salt and acid, yet life has found a foothold. Bacteria and archaea cling to crystals, metabolizing the sulfur and iron, forming mats that wave in the currents of rising gas. The presence of life here changes the way we search for life elsewhere, because if it can flourish in this hellscape, perhaps it can flourish on Mars or Europa. Some ponds, particularly those near the hottest vents, are sterile. The conditions cross a threshold beyond which even the hardiest microbe cannot survive. This border between possibility and impossibility is literal. You can walk from a pool teeming with bacterial mats to one completely lifeless in a few steps. A little south of Dallol is a body of water so dense with salt that it looks like oil. Gaet'ale Pond was formed in 2005 when an earthquake opened a fissure and hot, mineral-rich water flooded the salt plains. Today, its salinity exceeds 40%, making it the saltiest natural lake known. The surface is clear but thick, with patches of white foam where gas escapes. Plumes of steam constantly rise from its surface, and the ground around is slick and soft. The water's heat and salt concentration are such that no fish, algae or bacteria are known to live there. The smell of sulfur is strong, the sound of bubbling is constant. Around the pond, hexagonal salt plates float like lily pads. In some places, sulfur crystals form crusts that crunch underfoot. And then, to the south, a mountain smokes. Gaet'ale, meaning smoking mountain in the Afar language, is a low, shield volcano with a broad summit crater containing one of the few permanent lava lakes on Earth. The volcano rises like a dark ridge from the desert, its flanks streaked with hardened flows. At night, the glow of the lava lake shines red against the stars, a beacon visible for dozens of kilometers. The path to the rim is steep and treacherous, passing over brittle black lava fields that sound hollow when you walk on them. Cracks exhale hot air and sometimes belch sulfur. At the top, you look down into a cauldron of molten rock. The surface of the lake is a moving skin of cooled crust, cracking and folding, revealing molten interior. Waves of lava slosh overturning crust, sending fountains of orange viscous rock into the air. When the wind shifts, the heat roars up from the pit like a furnace door opening. You smell earth and sulfur and something metallic. Ash often drifts from the lake, carried high into the atmosphere. The glow is mesmerizing, hypnotic. To stand there is to witness the earth creating itself in real time. These extremes shape not only the landscape, but also the people who inhabit it. The Afar have lived in this region for centuries. They are semi-nomadic pastoralists herding camels, goats and cattle across the desert and along the edges of the salt flats. They know where to find water in a land that hides it. They know which plants to feed their herds and which to avoid. And they know how to read the subtle signs of an approaching haboob, a wall of dust and wind that can strip skin. In the shimmering heat, men chip salt from the flats, working in teams. One uses a wooden pole to pry up sheets, another uses an axe to cut them into bricks, and a third ties them with rope made from acacia bark. Each brick weighs around 7 kilos. Camels kneel patiently in the heat while the loads are secured. These caravans walk for days to the highlands, selling salt at markets in exchange for grain and goods. This trade is ancient. Tracks made by thousands of camel feet have cut grooves in the salt that fill with brine and evaporate, leaving bright veins like scars. Despite the heat and dryness, humans are not the first inhabitants to have left their mark here. In 1974, near the village of Hadar in the Danakil depression, paleoanthropologists discovered a skeleton that would revolutionize our understanding of human evolution. She was a tiny female Australopithecus afarensis, 3.5 feet tall with long arms and curved fingers. She lived 3.2 million years ago. She is known to the world as Lucy, and she walked upright. The sediment that preserved her bones was part of an ancient floodplain that predates the current desert. Her presence here links this hellish landscape with our own origin. The bones lay untouched for millions of years in what became one of the hottest and driest places on Earth. To look across the salt flats and think of early humans roaming this region when it was lush is to see time compress, to feel the weight of deep history. The sky here is rarely empty. In the dry season, it is a dome of relentless blue. On some days, it is white with haze. Occasionally, clouds gather and hang low, and you can feel hope stir in the air, but they often pass without releasing rain. When it does rain, the drops are warm and few. The water touches salt and is gone. In the evening, when the sun sinks, shadows stretch across the salt and the heat radiates back into the air. Temperatures drop only slightly. At night, under a sky unpolluted by city lights, the stars are like pinpricks through black velvet. The Milky Way arches overhead. There is no sound but your own breathing and perhaps the distant rumble of a volcano or the hiss of steam. The desert seems to breathe slowly in and out as it cools and reheats. The Danakil Depression is often called the hottest place on Earth, yet the heat is only one part of its story. The real character of this place lies in its layers of paradox, water that is simultaneously boiling and not boiling because it is too salty, lakes that are below sea level yet never fill, landscapes that look dead yet harbor life at the microscopic scale, a valley where a hominin skeleton can lie undisturbed for millions of years and still be found by modern scientists, a volcano whose lava lake can be both terrifying and beautiful, a community of people who thrive in a place that would kill most others. It is hellish and heavenly, inert and dynamic, desolate and teeming. To walk here is to walk through a living laboratory of our planet's past and future. It shows us what Earth might have looked like billions of years ago when life first emerged, and it offers clues about the conditions we might find on worlds beyond our own. The colors of Dallol, the roar of Gaet'ale, the crack of salt underfoot, the taste of brine on your lips and the burn of desert wind on your skin all combine into an experience so intense that it feels like a fever dream. And when you leave, the land will continue to change. New geysers will form. Old ones will collapse. Salt mounds will rise and be cut down. Lava will cool and then flow again. Caravans will cross and cross again. The Danakil Depression does not care whether humans witness its transformations. It will keep unfolding its extremes and paradoxes for anyone who is curious and brave enough to stand at the threshold of Earth's power.